This week, Victorian watchdog IBAC revealed ministers in the Andrews government had improperly awarded a $1.2 million contract to the Health Workers Union ahead of the 2018 state election, with staff inappropriately pressuring health bureaucrats. Now, despite the seriousness of the report, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews rebuffed the findings, saying it found no one was at fault and is purely educational. Well, one legal expert has weighed in, dubbing the Premier's response as highly offensive and a seriously mischaracterisation of the findings. These comments from retired judge and Centre for Public Integrity board member Stephen Charles Casey, and he joins me now. Stephen, welcome to the show. Thank you so very much. What arced you up initially so much about the Premier's response?
Well, the results of the IBAC investigation amounted to a number of findings of serious misconduct on the part of people in government in relation to the procurement and management of this substantial contract. Now, the Premier said that there were no findings of corruption against anyone. The reason for that is that in the Victorian legislation there is a requirement that there be the finding of a criminal offence before there can be a finding of corruption. Now, that is unnecessary. The reality is that plenty of corruption does not involve a criminal offence at all. Yeah. It's frequently a matter simply of a serious conflict of interest. For example, things like the sports rorts and the car park rorts, which were serious corruption, did not at the same time involve, obviously, a criminal offence.
Now, it's a brilliant point you make. How concerning is his response, and did it surprise you on any level?
It didn't surprise me greatly, because that had been the Premier's response to other matters in relation to IBAC, in relation, for example, to the letter sent by the Commissioner of IBAC in late December, in which he raised a number of very serious matters to be put to members of the Victorian Parliament. And again, that brought about a very noisy debate in Parliament, in which similarly the Premier was quite disdainful of the whole matter of the complaints raised by Commissioner Redlich.
The Victorian Parliamentary Budget Officer Anthony Close has been informed by Parliament's Budget Estimates Committee that his contract won't be renewed. His final day in the position is this Friday. This obviously, the timing, I'll let you respond to that in your words.
Well, plainly he should have his contract reinstated. It's a very necessary position as part of the oversight of proper behaviour in Parliament. He should be there.
What do you think the Premier should do now? Is there any chance that he'll take any ownership?
In the first place, the Premier should give consideration to serious amendments to the IBAC legislation. There are a number of things that are presently wrong with it and leaving IBAC in a very difficult position in trying to carry out its functions. Secondly, the Premier needs to take into consideration the fact that he has a very large force of ministerial aides. Where they become involved in matters like this contract, which was the subject of the IBAC report, the Premier has something like 80 plus aides who surround him. Now, when they deal with public servants have an obligation to be completely impartial when dealing either with whatever side of Parliament happens to be in government at the time. Ministerial aides do not. Ministerial aides owe their allegiance to the party and to the Premier, and the result is that they are the ones who, in this case, will lead to serious problems when they deal with public servants.
Do you think the Premier should resign? Should anyone resign off the back of this?
No, what I'm saying is that that matter needs to be dealt with and not simply put to one side in the insulting way in which the Premier did.
I want to ask you now about the Voice very quickly at the end here, given your legal background. The Solicitor General's legal advice about changing the Constitution to include an Indigenous voice to Parliament has been released today. Now, the opposition are arguing that it was written last week and may not be the original advice. Well, it's certainly not the original document. We know that hasn't been released. What do you make of what he put in that opinion piece, so to speak, and what are your thoughts generally on the Voice?
I haven't read the Solicitor General's advice. I've heard a short recap of it. To me, it sounded exactly right and exactly what I would have expected. I'm a supporter of the Voice. I hope that when the referendum comes, it will be passed.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your opinion here on Erin. Stephen Charles, thank you so much for your time.